Hello, everybody. Ella J here on behalf of WrestleZone, and today I'm joined by the Mafiosa, Valentina Rossi. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic to be speaking with you today, Miss Ma'am. You, my friend, are doing so many cool things. I mean, you've already done so much, and it hasn't even been 2 years since your debut. So there's a lot to be proud of. But obviously, at the time of recording this, you were coming off of a huge opportunity that took place last weekend. You challenged the Brick House, Kamille, for the NWA Women's World Championship at Coastal Championship Wrestling. So, I mean, first of all, how was that experience and then working with Kamille?
Oh my God, it was crazy. I was so nervous going into it just because it is like a big deal to wrestle.
Yeah.
Number one, I want to wrestle for NWA so bad. So like getting to wrestle for the title just like off the bat, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. But yeah, just like the whole experience was just so cool. And like it was a pretty big like match in general, just even like it wasn't like a full-on squash, which I just loved because like I'm so used to just like this at this stage of my career, just like having 5-second squash
Yeah.
matches. So I was like, oh, this is cool. And like she was so sweet to work with and just everything was so easy. So
Like you mentioned, that wasn't the only big opportunity that you've made so far in professional wrestling. I mean, you had your debut in AEW, as a matter of fact, but months later after that, you had the chance to wrestle Persia Parada, Steph Delander on NXT, of course, alongside Casey Lennox, who I love her too. So I'm
yeah.
curious to know how. I know it's in Florida. You were in Florida at that time. It's kind of around where the PC is and everything. It might have something to do with that. But how did that opportunity come together for you, and what are some of your takeaways from it?
So obviously my coach, Tyler Breeze, I think he was still there at the time.
I believe
He might have
so.
still been there. When I was there that day, he wasn't there. But it's funny because like I had a weird experience the week before at NXT because I guess like one of the other extras, there was like this big problem. Like he didn't get cleared medically, and then he kind of like made a big stink. So there, I guess like medical was like, don't use any of the extras, and I was like, man, like just ruined it for all of us. So I like told my coach, and he was like, it's fine, like you'll be back, like you didn't do anything wrong. So then I was back the next week, and he like made a comment to me or something, and I was like, well, if I have a match, and he was like, oh, you do, and I was like, I do, and he was like, yeah. I was like, how do you know? And he was like, because I talked to the writers, and I was like, okay. I was like, well, you want to tell me get like who, like he wouldn't give me any information.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I knew I had a match, and then when I got there, like the second I walked in the door, Daryl was like, you have a match, just go to medical. And I was like, I have a match. Then they told me as I was walking into medical, so they like took my heart rate, and they're like, oh my God, like your heart rate is like 125 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, they just told me I have a match. So they were like, all right, just like we can't like clear you if there's your heart rate, so just like calm down like for a few minutes. And I was like, okay. So I'm like trying to calm it down, got down to like 95 or something, and they were like, okay, you're fine. But yeah, just like crazy situation because like it's just so different because when you go to NXT, there's only 3 extras and only one of them is a girl. So going
There was
there's
two. There was two this
there's
time.
2 that day. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But when you go to AEW, there's like 50 extras.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, this is just so like I'm kind of like not comfortable at both now. I just like know more what to expect. I'm more prepared because I'm not like as fresh in the business. I'm still obviously like very green.
Yeah.
But it was just like so different. Like when we had our little entrance, obviously it wasn't like aired. But it was also on live TV. So I'm like standing in the ring, just like waiting, which felt like literally the longest commercial break of my life. And like I wouldn't say I blacked out, but the whole thing just like I just remember standing there being like, wow, look at these, like this is cool.
Mhm.
Like this is so cool. And I remember like texting my coaches after like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. Oh my God. And then like obviously like Breeze called me and was like, so how was it? And I was like, oh my God, I was like, what? And I was just like on this wrestling high for the next like month. But yeah.
It was a good experience for you, and you can tell even just talking about it, you have that passion for it. And I mean, yeah, I mean, if your heart rate wasn't indicative of that, even you talking about it right now, you have so much passion for it. And again, that was kind of another opportunity where whether it be in AEW, NXT, wow, you've been surrounded by a lot of producers and seasoned veterans, whether it be backstage or out there wrestling them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, throughout any of these, have you been able to maybe pick anyone's brain for advice? And if so, who was it from and what did they teach you outside of Breeze and Spears?
That's a good question. It's funny because like I literally run back to my coaches with any information that I
Fair.
pick up. Like I feel like such a little kid sometimes because I'm like, well, I got this correction. Do you agree? And they're like, there's no like, there is some right and wrong in wrestling,
Yeah.
but like for the most part, like everything is very opinion based.
Mhm.
Let me think. This is like a good question. Trying to think. Give me a sec.
You're good.
Like I haven't really like everyone that I've gotten advice from is always been like not like a legend, if that makes sense. It's
Okay.
people who are like working their way up who are like higher than me who like
Okay. I mean, still.
yeah. I'm trying to think like I don't know if I have an answer for this one yet. Ask me our next interview.
Okay. Okay. I'm curious then. You've wrestled obviously some of the AEW roster in there. How
Yeah.
many? Okay, you seem to keep track of your matches. I feel like because the last time we talked, we'll talk about that later. But how many AEW matches have you had?
I think I've had 15 now. I have them all written
Oh.
down, but I think I've had 15 now.
You know,
Yeah.
that's crazy. The last time I talked to you, you had 14 matches total
Oh
in
my
your
god.
career, and now you've had 15 in AEW alone.
Oh my
Oh my
god.
gosh. Okay. So then again, you're facing these women who I would say for the most part have had more experience than you. Have you
Right.
been able to, like, whether through working with a certain person or kind of absorb some of the experience or just something by working with somebody, one of the girls in AEW then?
So actually I worked, it's so crazy. I worked Kylan as my first match,
Yes.
and then I worked her again almost exactly a year later at AEW, and it was the main event of Dark because it was like leading up to her big match with Britt.
Right, yeah.
And like she was like, oh my god, like what a change. Like it's just crazy to see like just even hearing you talk and like talking in the ring and just like how you just sound so much more comfortable now. And then same exact thing happened with Abaddon. I think she was my like third or fourth match at AEW. And I wrestled her exactly almost a year later. And she was like, wow, like good for you. Like, you know, you put on muscle, you like, you're not just like getting comfortable, like you just keep progressing. And I was like, she sent me the nicest message on Twitter. And I was like, oh, that just like means so much coming from
Yeah.
someone like her, especially someone who like puts so much into their character. Like
Yeah.
I want that much. I want my character to be that hashed out. Like, because I rely so much on just like being loud and obnoxious in the ring and just like obviously you need layers, but the commitment level from her, oh
Yeah, I mean, you yourself, I mean, you're still kind of green, not necessarily. There's people who are greener, but you're still in the early stages of your career. That's good though that you kind of Kylan's, I guess, in a huge focal figure in CCW too, like former CCW women's champion.
yeah.
So, you know, she's huge. Abaddon, I've heard good things about Ed. This is actually kind of two interviews back to back where I've heard really good things about people working with Abaddon, which again, you don't get to see all of that because all you see is the character that she portrays on screen,
Right.
you know, like you said, that she's really committed to it. But as you mentioned, you are still fairly early on, and obviously character work is one that keeps evolving. But what are some of the other challenges that you feel like you've faced so far in your career?
The other challenges. Um, honestly, I'm just trying to get over like this little like this hump because I just want to be signed so bad. Like
Yeah.
I just want to make wrestling like my full-time job and just like be on TV and have some sort of like storyline. Cause I feel like you can hash out your character and you can really go all in, but it's not really gonna like get to that full potential until you're like put in a storyline. Um, but I actually like quit my job back in November and I was like, screw this. Like it was just taking up all of my time. So I was like, I'm just quitting this job. Like it's just, I need to just like focus on wrestling. And like somehow, like I've just been going full on with wrestling and I've been like staying afloat so far. So no complaints.
Do you still pick up some modeling gigs throughout it too, or is that just more sporadic?
I don't model like I don't take like paid shoots anymore.
Okay.
Everything that I've done in Florida so far has just been like for fun, and I do have some like Instagram sponsorships with like Shein and Romway. So
Yeah.
every time I do these like photo shoots that are just like trades where it's like, oh, we're just doing this shoot for fun, I'll try to like wear like the product that they send me just so
Yeah.
that like like the quality of the shoots
Yeah.
are up to date and like, you know,
Oh, I'm
like
a Shein-holic, so is another one of our good friends. Shein, I always say Romway, but I guess it's Romley. Like I've been ordering from there for years too. I don't
is it Romway or
I
Romwe?
don't know. I've
I
heard
also like
both.
I also hear people say Sheen instead of
Yeah,
Shein.
no, I mean it could be Sheen. Like that's a word, but that's normally EE. I say
Right.
Shein.
Yeah,
I
me
don't
too.
know. I don't know. But that, I mean, that has to be had to have been and still is an ongoing big transition for you to go full time. So how have you been adjusting to that full time now? And like, I mean, sure, yeah, you're still like doing photo shoots, doing social media work, like make your own merch, but how have you been
Yeah.
adjusting so far? It's been like 4 months now.
It's yeah, I honestly
Three
was
months.
like very stressed at first and like I don't know if like you're the type of person that's like, oh, I think meditating's bullshit. Like some people are just like, oh, like, meh. But I like started meditating probably about like 6 months ago now
Yeah.
and really just like manifesting money. And when I tell you like money just like finds me, I try not to think about it because if I like overthink it, I'm like, oh, well, it's gonna end eventually.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, like I literally like keep randomly getting like these bookings that just pay like half of my rent. And then I'm like, wow, okay, well, if I get two of these a month, like I'm good. So, like, when money, it's the weirdest thing because, like, I originally started meditating because my emotions were kind of just all over the place.
Yeah.
And I felt myself getting like, it's one thing to be jealous, but it's another thing to be like spiteful. And I felt
Yes.
like I was starting to become like spiteful of my friends that were like doing well. And I was like, this isn't okay because, like, in wrestling, it's not like, okay, you've been working longer, so you're going to get the job first. Like, there's none of that. Someone could literally get signed for, you know, being an athlete.
Yeah.
And I could spend thousands of dollars to go to wrestling school and won't even get an opportunity for a few years. But, like, I can't like hate those people because they're not stopping me from getting an opportunity. It's just that like it was their timing. So like I really had to just like my emotions were just like getting the best of me. And I was like, well, how come this person's gonna and then like eventually I was like, this is wrestling, like I just need to like pull myself together. And then I started listening to like meditations to fall asleep. And a lot of the ones that like are for sleep are like money
Yeah.
attraction.
Yeah.
Some of them are so weird though. Like I like giggle at them sometimes because the one like that I always try to avoid is like money is attracted to you. Like it finds you so attractive. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you find me attractive. Like just like weird wording. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
please listen to this.
But no, I totally understand that. I have like my crystals and like affirmation cards, and like obviously
Yeah.
there's certain things like for attracting money and stuff like that. But you make a good point because I think in anything, because I feel this too more in like the wrestling media landscape, like comparing yourself to others, like why is yeah, jealousy is a natural thing as much as we don't want to admit it. But like you said, there's jealousy and then there's spiteful. If you can control that jealousy and kind of turn it into your motivator or turn it into something productive, which you've done, you know, that works itself out. But
Right.
you mentioned too, I mean, you have trained under two of the best. You still go to them under Flatbacks in Florida, Tyler Breeze and Sean Spears. And though you've graduated, I mean, you keep coming back, I see, you know, for some of the newer classes or maybe to keep learning yourself, which evidently seems to be kind of both. But what keeps you reeled back into Flatbacks?
Well, so we do obviously it's like an 8 week program.
Yes.
I'm like terrified of getting ring rust. Like I don't
Okay.
ever want to just like stop progressing. Like I'm just terrified of that. So obviously they like let me come back,
Yeah.
like go back like almost every day.
Yes.
They can't get rid of me. So pretty much just like when we get to the point of the 8 weeks of doing matches, they'll just make sure that like I have like a purpose for each match and I'm working on certain things. So I'm not just like doing matches to do them. Like even when I take bookings on the indies, they'll be like, okay, but what was your goal for this match? So like they always keep me on my toes with that kind of stuff, just so I'm like always focused on something. Just so I'm not like, oh, well, I just wanted to have a good match, or like, oh, I just wanted to like, there's always a goal for each match.
Yeah.
Like, were you working on this? Were you working on your character stuff? Were you working on selling? Like, what's your goal for this match? So, that's always like a good way to keep me like not just going to class to go to class. Also, like, it's good when I go to class because I'm working with people who have like, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks experience.
Yeah.
So it's good to kind of just like work with people with less experience, because I feel like if you can work with them, you can work with anyone.
True.
And then like, sometimes they'll put me in matches against like my other classmates that also continue to come back, which is good because then we'll have like 15-minute matches, which is very rare for like bookings, for especially for females. Like we don't get like 15 minutes just because. But it's good because then like we really work on like the falsies and the emotion and the reactions and like everything. So it's still like, even though I'm taking bookings, like it's still good to keep doing matches in class because they can give me like immediate feedback.
Yeah. And I mean, not that there's like less pressure, but it's like gives you time to evolve. It's not like, I don't know how to explain it, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get immediate feedback there. It's not like a lot. You do have an audience, but it's not like a live bigger
Right.
audience. It gives you a platform to learn from your mistakes and keep progressing forward. And obviously a big part of your progression is obviously carving the identity of the mafiosa, which obviously ties in with a lot of your Jersey Italian roots. And like you mentioned earlier, you've been taking some time to dive deeper into your culture there. So what elements of that culture can people see through your work as the mafiosa, or what do you hope to kind of instill in the future?
That's a good question. I'm always trying to, dive deeper and figure out the layers. So the next step that I've been like working on, which I shouldn't be telling you this so early on, but I
Okay.
have been like learning Italian, and it's hard. It's freaking hard. But and I did know like a very little bit because I did take it in high school, but like my teacher was retiring that year, so he would just
Okay.
make us watch movies and like didn't care. Um and like a lot of my family speaks it, so it does make it easier. But once you get into like conversational and actually speak to like people who Italian is their first language, I'm just like, what? So it gets so difficult. But I try to just like, I have like Duolingo and like
Yeah.
have like a 200-day streak or
No,
whatever. But I'm like,
I have a couple friends who use that. Literally, some were just posting about it today. I kid you not.
it's like helpful. It's just that like it's not an actual person. So if I have questions, like they can't
Yeah.
respond. But I do have family in Italy that I was like thinking about like reaching out to and be like, hey, wanna like practice? So we'll see. That's the next step, is like trying to learn it enough that like
Yeah.
I can have like basic conversations.
What is one word or phrase that you feel like that you've mastered besides like hello, hi, like besides the
I'm
basics?
so scared. Oh my god, if I like say this wrong at
Okay.
all, someone's gonna just like, I know, immediately gonna be like, it's this. Um, uh, and my go-to right now is just saying ceniamo, which means we eat dinner. But like it's a
Okay.
good like, oh ceniamo, like it's like a good like
Geniamo.
fierce thing to say.
Yeah. Okay. I
So
I like food, so I like
and I was like, I wonder if I can like use that like in the ring somehow. Like,
like your
oh,
opponent could be your dinner.
yeah, it's exactly, yeah. So
Mm.
I'm like, maybe I'll try to use that somehow, but I don't want to like start throwing in Italian stuff yet, just
Yeah.
because like I don't want to mess it up.
No, I get that. You're like you said, you're still learning and progressing and take things one thing at a time. And you can kind of maybe use that phrase in like a flatback setting or like a smaller setting just to see, like,
Yeah,
trial and error. That's all it is. But you're open
yeah.
to experimenting. But you've also tying in with your character, you've introduced some new gear in the last few months. So I'm curious if there's a certain story or inspo behind your latest gear, which I believe is your blue and gold one.
Yes.
Yes.
So, that one's actually getting pretty beat up. I'm probably gonna retire it soon. I'm supposed
Okay.
to get new gear like this week, so hopefully
Mm.
it comes in soon. I don't care how people get new gear. Like I literally put in like my order of gear like this second I get the new one, and I'm like, I need more.
Yeah.
But so I really wanted to do for gear, just like in general with like the whole Italian thing. I thought like Versace print would literally be like perfect
Yeah.
for the gimmick because Versace is Italian and like the whole print and everything. I was like, oh, perfect. And I'll have some gold chains and stuff on it. People will just get it. But then like one day I woke up and every single person on TV was wearing Versace print. And I
You're
was
not
like, oh,
wrong.
so I was like, all right, I need to like figure something else out. So I just started doing the gold chains for a little bit just because it was hard I was like really picky with the fabric. Like I loved my red two-piece gear that I think I only wore it like maybe 2 or 3 times. I'm like saving that as like my good gear. I've been told to like save gear for like pay-per-views and that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
like obviously I'm not doing pay-per-views right now, so it's but I like save that for like important matches. But that one I loved. I thought it like looked great. It fit me great. I'm not a big fan of like two-piece gear. But the print I was like it's not exactly what I was going for, but it works. And like just the print itself is like I'm just so picky about it. I don't know why. I'm just so picky. So I think I'm just gonna get rid of the Versace print thing. The blue and gold one right now, that one is like, I just don't want that one to ever die because it just fits me so great. It's got the gold chains. I think I'm getting another set in that same gear, just a different color.
Okay.
We'll see. I like asked for some tweaks and stuff just because like I love the gold chains and everything. The only thing I didn't like about it was how like on the stomach they like it was like 3 or something. And I thought like it kind of looked a little bit um like a ringleader kind of deal, you know what I mean? Like
Okay.
a
Yeah.
and I was like, maybe just something else. Like even if it's just like crisscrossed instead or
Mhm.
something, but like my gear maker just always nails it. She
Okay.
just like knows my measurements perfectly and it always
Yeah.
fits great. And it's always just like I never have a problem. I never have to like try it on and give it back. Like so I'm just gonna get like 10 more sets from her.
So this one can confirm is not this next one is not so Versace patterned.
I like forget what I asked for because it was
Okay,
so
fair
long
enough.
ago, but
Fair enough.
but it might be, it might not be. I just said like, oh, if you could find it in this color, then sure. But if not, then just do the solid color. So
Okay.
we'll
Well, it's all about evolution.
see.
We look forward to it, you know. I feel like gear, well, was the blue and gold one like the only one that you've been wearing recently too?
Yes,
Yeah.
because I'm just like most comfortable in that one.
Okay.
Like, it
Well,
just
that's why it got
like
worn out. That's why I was asking because some
yeah,
people like rotate, but you said that you have another one that you've kind of been holding so it doesn't get worn out. So that makes sense.
yeah. I do have like this one black set of gear that I only wore once and it fits me perfect, but it just like the person that made it isn't like an actual gear maker.
Okay.
So they didn't know like how they had to like hold up. So it kind of like
Yeah.
fell apart. And I was like, oh, it was just so
Oh
expensive. I don't want
no.
to wear it again.
Oh my God.
So
Okay. Well, we look forward to whatever you have next coming up. But before you were donning the ring gear, you often sported a leotard as you were a ballerina for about 20 years. After a while, though, you said that you didn't, quote, fit the mold anymore, though. So can you kind of tell us more about your experience in the dance scene and kind of more what swayed you away from it?
so growing up, like my mom was actually a ballerina and then she got injured before she like got to the professional part of it. She like tore her ACL and like back then knee surgery was not the same.
Yeah.
So she just had to like end her career there. But I was like a very hyper and like fidgety kid and she was like, I'm putting you in dance to try to just like get rid of some of this energy. And then, I did it from the age of like 3 until like 23. And it was weird doing something like that when you're like going through puberty and going through your awkward
Yep.
stages. Cause like I was
Yep.
never
Nope.
like Boob.
Yep.
Yes. They were like, my teachers were like, oh, you gotta lose weight. Like, I would just hear it all the time. Like, you have to lose weight, you have to lose weight. And I was like, I don't like, even if I lose weight, like, I'm still gonna have boobs. I'm still a woman, but like,
Yeah.
they want ballerinas to look a certain way. And like, there's nothing I could do about that. So I was just a chunky ass kid. And then when I went through puberty, I got chunkier. And then like, I finally figured out how to like diet and stuff, some healthy ways, some very unhealthy ways. And then I was just like over it. And I couldn't tell if I was like over it because I didn't know if I was just dancing because it was routine and a part of my life and I was just used to it because I was
Yeah.
doing it for so long, or if I like actually loved it. And it's crazy because I stopped dancing I think like 7 years ago now, and I don't miss it. I haven't taken a class since and I never think about it. But it's just crazy because I really feel like wrestling like is for me. I like moved to LA to like model and do this and do this. And I
Yeah.
think living in LA, I just like I tell people all the time, like LA just like stripped me of my personality. Like I was so scared to like talk because I thought everyone was just judging me all the time. And I just became this quiet, shy person, which is just like not me. And then when I moved to Florida, like they were like, be loud, be loud in the ring, be this. And I was like, I'm allowed to be like, it's not gonna be disrespectful. And like even dancing, like you're not allowed to talk. So I was like, what? And like wrestling, you can have whatever kind of body type you want. Like
Yeah.
you can be a bigger person and do like power moves and that kind of stuff, or you can be smaller and be high flying. And I mean, even now I'm trying to like find that balance because I'm like, well, I'm not like jacked out of my mind. So I'm not gonna be like picking people up over my head and like throwing them, but like I'm not this like skinny little ballerina anymore. So I'm like trying to find that balance. But yeah, wrestling is way cooler.
Yeah, so you must be a mind reader because my next kind of thing was about LA. Obviously, I feel like part of it, you moving to LA, you were doing some dabbling into reality television, you were modeling. I'm sure that's probably pulled, is that safe to say that kind of pulled you to LA? Okay. Were you,
Yeah.
to kind of just a clear timeline, when did you move to LA? Were you still actively dancing at this point too?
No, so I actually
Okay.
signed with a modeling agency in New York
Is
and
that
Philly. It was on the East
Was that
Coast.
Wilhelmina or was
Yes.
it okay, okay. That
Yeah.
kind of adds up the timeline. Go on.
Yeah. So then I finished college, which I would not recommend going to school for dance. It's a waste of a degree. um, haven't done anything with it. Um, it was just kind of like to waste time, honestly, because I didn't know what I was doing. But after I finished college, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna dance professionally. I went to New York. I was living in New Jersey at home with my mom until I could like find an apartment because there's this
Mhm.
weird like layover time when you like graduate college and you're
Yeah.
trying to like get out. But then that's when I was like, oh, I'm just like tired of dance. So I just like went full force with my modeling agency. And they kind of just had me in every category, which like does not work in modeling. You can't be a runway model in high fashion, but also do commercial because it's just
Editorial.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not like being realistic either way because like they're not going to take editorial models and put them in like Old Navy commercials. So I was like kind of confused, and everyone was like, "Oh, well, if you want to do like fitness modeling, you've literally," because I was doing a lot of like Nike, Adidas, Reebok, that kind of stuff in New York, and everyone was like, "Just move to LA. That's where all the fitness modeling is." And I was like, "All right, I'm not dancing here anymore. Like, may as well just like take the leap." So I like moved out there, and I was like modeling full time, but like doing a lot of like BS background work and like extra work. And like that's what was paying the bills, but like just not enjoyable. It'd be like 16-hour days of like just like walking and like just being like when you do like background work, it's just so annoying because you just
Yeah.
have to be like social person in the background. It's like how long can I be social for 16
Mhm.
hours? So it was
True.
just it was very annoying. And I started to like travel a lot just because I was like bored and I was like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And I started wrestling out there and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. And then
Yeah.
COVID happened.
Yeah. COVID affected a lot of people, but was LA where you met your friend from Glow?
Yes. Oh no. You mean
I don't know.
Glow, like the
The
Netflix show?
Yes.
No, we actually went to college together in New Jersey. We both went to Rutgers for dance. Then we both moved to LA. And I was like, oh shit, I'm out there too, whatever. And then she was like, oh, I just did this show Glow. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. I just tried out for this show. Wow. And she was like, oh, really? And it was just like a weird coincidence.
Who was it?
Shakira Barrera. She was
Oh, okay.
yeah, the little
Okay.
breakdance performer.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's exciting though. And then it's kind of you just kind of, obviously you came apart, found out about WoW and all of that, but it's kind of your lead into wrestling. That's so funny though. But obviously, you got turned off by Florida, obviously ended up moving. Sorry, you got turned off by LA and ended up moving to Florida. This was
Yeah.
before you even knew that Flatbacks was out in Florida, I believe.
Right.
So what you kind of mentioned what specifically turned you off about LA and what were you seeking initially in Florida?
So the thing that I like actually only miss about dance was just like performing. Like I just loved being in front of people and performing. I loved like the athleticism, and I was like, I don't know what is even like what my other options are, because the only other like type of performing is like singing and acting. And I was like, I don't like any of those things, or like I like them, but I don't think I'm good at them. And then I just liked being like an active and physical person. So just when I saw the like casting for WoW, I was like, that's really interesting, because I had like previously applied to this like reality show.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That never made
never
it
heard
to
anything
air.
back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh man, like that sucks, because that would have been really cool. So I started like Googling like just how people get into like stunt work and like wrestling, and like I really didn't really like understand how people got into professional wrestling, because like obviously you watch like Total Divas and stuff, and they all have
Yeah.
different stories. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, how do I get in like that? So I like obviously made a recruit page, didn't hear anything back. And then when I like got contacted by WoW, I was like, oh my God, I gotta try this. Like this was a sign. I'm big on like signs.
Was
So I was
this
like,
in LA or Florida?
it was in LA. So
Okay.
I like started with WoW. I trained there for like a few weeks,
Yeah.
had one match there, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it was the only thing keeping me in LA. So I was like, well, what do I do now? So I started looking up like wrestling schools and that kind of thing in Florida, because like being WoW, there was other girls coming in from the indies that I was like collecting like little bits and pieces from. So they were like, oh, like I went to wrestling school. I was like, there's wrestling school. So I started like looking up schools, whatever. And then I actually reached out to Santana Garrett,
Yeah.
because she was at WoW, and like our paths never crossed there. She was there before me,
Mhm.
but everyone was like, oh my God, she's so sweet. Just reach out to her. So I was like, hi, like I'm one of the WoW girls. Like I really want to go to wrestling school. And like I heard that you were in LA, or not LA, Florida, and you were teaching. And she's like, well, I'm not teaching anymore, because that's like it was when she was signed NXT. So I was like,
NXT.
oh, got you. But she was like, oh, but go to this school. So it seems like when I moved to Florida, Florida was obviously way more open than LA, but
Yeah.
still like a lot of schools had like closed during the pandemic just for like financial reasons. And then she was like, oh, come to this school. So I like went there for I think like maybe like 3 months. And I was just like a deer in headlights, because it was like more of a drop-in school. And then I was actually like best friends with my boyfriend, and he was like, you should come to this seminar with me and my friend. It'll be fun. Like, and you'll get to see like another wrestling school and just like see how differently like other people work, just because like this isn't your only option. And I was like, okay. So I went to a flatback seminar, and
The rest is
I was like,
history.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, they have like an 8-week program where you learn the basics. And I was like, this is perfect, because I don't know the basics. And like the school that I was going to before, like was a drop-in school. We would do matches, and like I didn't know how to do an arm drag. And the coach was like, oh, do a German suplex. And I was like, but I can't do an arm drag. And it was just like, it was scary.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and the rest is history.
yeah, you've graduated. They keep pulling you back, but you mentioned obviously, I mean, WoW was really instrumental in your early stages. You've since parted ways, but it really got your engine up and revving, I feel like. So, do you have any main takeaways or things that you've learned from those involved that were at WoW that you kind of still carry forward?
Um, it's funny because like WoW is just so different than the rest of the wrestling world
Yeah.
that I was like really just like taking a huge risk by coming out here and training because it's not the same. But it was just so good to like get because I actually went back for one more season
You did.
recently.
Yes.
And it was just crazy. It was nice to like see Selena again and just like show her that like, I'm still doing this. I'm serious about this and that like, I'm still working on my character, my technique, my gym physique, whatever, like just showing her that like I've been working on everything. And she was big hug. She's like, I'm so proud of you. Um, just it's important, I feel like, to like find those little connections with people in wrestling because like it is very like dog eat dog.
Yeah.
But like if you find like those few people that you can really like mesh with, like you'll be good. Because I even say like here now, I'm like, oh, I want to have like my boyfriend and I were like, oh, should we have people over for like Elimination Chamber? And we're like, oh, we don't have friends. Like all we do is train and like
Everybody else is like spread out. Like this whole
yeah,
rest, everybody's just spread
right.
out
And
too.
I'm like, we see these people every day. Are they really gonna want to see us on their day off? Like,
Sure.
come on. So, but like even the girl Steffi that like trained, like she was training, she was one of the trainers at the time when I was there. Um, she was at WoW for like 10 years. But like we still keep in touch. And I was like, I know I'm gonna have her as like a friend forever.
Mhm.
So it's like crazy because after we had our match together in LA, because we had our first match against each other, and then one of the last matches I had there was also against her. And we like had this big hug after and we both just started crying. It was like almost like we knew that like we both weren't coming back.
Mhm.
But like at the time we didn't know, but I was like, I feel like we just knew. But like
Mhm.
it's just like it's so good when you get to like wrestle your friends and those people that you have like good ring chemistry with, just because like it's like so hard to find that.
Mhm.
When you do, it's like, oh,
I
I want this
know.
forever.
Well, I'm just saying, just for example, you don't necessarily need people over because like we have virtual like parties all the time for pay-per-views for my friend, there's like
Hell yeah.
Discord, there's FaceTime, there's a lot of different things. Everybody's spread out, but I get it. Sometimes we do need some time off from wrestling though, especially when it's like full time. And I have two more questions for you. But you mentioned earlier, just by itself, you had 15 matches in AEW. I know one of your recent goals was to get to 100 matches. So where are you at currently with that number? I know you know it.
So I think I'm about halfway right now.
Okay.
I think the exact number is like 47 or something. After this week, I have 6 matches this week though, so I'll be
Yeah.
past halfway.
Okay.
Um, I've thought for sure I would have gotten there sooner by now, but I think like having the job at Disney just like really kicked my
Yeah.
ass. Like just took up a lot of time, and like when I would have days off, I was like, oh, I just want to sleep. Like,
Hmm.
so I think like it'll definitely happen like hopefully by the end of this year. Now that I don't have like a job.
Hmm. You do.
But
It's
yeah,
just wrestling. You do.
yeah.
That's exciting though. By the end of this week, by this time this airs, you will surpass 50, a few past 50. So you will be officially more than halfway there. And perhaps most
Woo.
importantly, lastly, you always ask people if they want the sauce. So what exactly is in this sauce? What's your secret recipe?
Oh, I can't give that away. It's funny. I actually have like a video on I think it's my WoW page on like one of the
Okay.
story reels of
Yeah.
like me making sauce, and it's like all the ingredients, but I like left a couple things out just in case people try to steal the
Okay.
sauce.
Okay.
And it's funny because like all my friends are like, when are you gonna like when are we gonna get to like actually try the sauce? And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh no, you don't get that. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because what if you use it as like ammo against me? What if you don't like it?
True.
So my boyfriend's the one that had it.
Okay. And since, I understand you got to keep it a secret. What is your go-to Jersey or Jersey Italian or Italian dish? I don't know what the right term is.
Ooh, okay. I love gnocchi. It's
Okay.
like my favorite because it's just so like doughy and delicious. Um, because I guess like compared to the other pastas, like it's made with potato, so it's more potatoey, and it just like soaks up the sauce so nice.
The
Um,
sauce.
the sauce. It also just like I love eggplant parm, and it's like hard to find good eggplant parm. And of course, I love pizza. Like, and I'll eat like I definitely can recognize like good pizza versus bad pizza, but like I will eat all pizza. Like I'll literally go to Walmart and get like a frozen pizza and be like, oh, this is great. Like
What
there's
is
no
your
such thing.
what is your go-to toppings? Because I know this is a widely hot debate.
I
People have.
know. I know the whole pineapple on pizza
Yeah.
thing is like
I've
a
never
big
had it, so
deal.
I truly can't judge it. I've never had pineapple on pizza.
You know, I think I'm gonna get shot if I say this. I think I had it when I was in college. I think I was like drunk and ordered it. Like, I'll take that one. It's
Mhm.
colorful. But like, I feel like it's hard to mess up pizza, and like, I don't agree with it. But I'm
I
also not
don't
gonna
feel
be
like it's hard. There's so many bad pizzas out there.
like. So like, obviously, I'm not gonna choose pineapple on pizza.
Okay.
But I did have a pizza when I was home last week that had long hots on it, which is just like the long hot peppers, and it was life changing. And I feel like that with like some sausage, like all like ground sausage, just
Mhm.
like all over it. Like I just feel like that would have made it like perfect.
If you
But I
like
also do
hot,
love
if you like hot stuff, guys. Whereas I
it was
I
really
I
hot.
cannot. I would die. But
It
you
also
know,
like the leftovers like sat in my fridge for like 2 days, and then when I went back for them, like it somehow got hotter just from sitting in the fridge, and I was like, oh my god, I'm dying.
there
And
it
like I
has to
can
be
eat.
some chemical reaction then with like the cold from like
I
your
know.
freezer or fridge with the hot of the pepper. I don't know science, but I feel like it might have something to do with it. But at least you know, what do you do then if you don't want to put it in the fridge? You're just gonna have to deal with it being really hot then, I guess.
I don't know, because like even growing up, my mom never like put pizza in the fridge. She would just leave it in the box, like
Yeah.
either she would put it in the oven or like leave it on top.
Yeah.
And then like a few years ago, one of my friends is a nurse, and she was like, "Oh my god, you can't leave it out for more than a few hours. It's cheese." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, but like, what about like cheese that isn't refrigerated? That like like aged cheese and stuff that's just like wrapped up in plastic? Like, I don't know. I know it's dairy, but I'm like, how do you know which cheeses do and don't get
Fair.
refrigerated? So
You
now
know,
it's
it's a
like
fair
refrigerated
point.
all." So, I
It's a
mean,
fair
like when I lived in London, like they didn't refrigerate their eggs, so I was like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." But
Interesting.
like, is it necessary?
I don't know. I guess well every part of the world is different too. Um I'm curious, how old were you when you lived? I know you lived in London for a year. At what point was this in your life?
I was in college still,
In
and I studied
college.
abroad
That's
and
why.
for
Okay.
like 9 months, but then I like stayed the extra three because you
Yeah.
can stay there not on a visa for 3 months. So I just stayed the extra 3 months.
Fair enough. I know we talked about that last time I talked with you. I just couldn't remember when, at what point. So you're a very world traveled person, not even in wrestling. Hopefully soon though in wrestling.
I know.
But you've been doing a lot, my friend. You've done a lot more than most people have in just their like kind of I know it's more than 2 years because with WoW and everything, but just even just since your debut, like you've done a lot more than most people can say, I feel like.
Thank you, thank you. Still have
And
a lot to do though.
yes, we have to get you to 100 matches. You'll be officially over halfway by the time this airs. But again, I wish nothing but the best of luck to you. Before we let you out of here, can you please share where the people can find you online?
Instagram is mafiosa.valentina, and then Twitter is Mafiosa Rossi.
I love to hear it. Valentina, thank you so much. One day we'll get the sauce recipe out of you. One day.
I'm
We'll just
hoping to
like,
just like sell it someday. Like when I get big enough, I'll just, how like some restaurants have like their wine. I'll just
yeah.
have like my sauce.
Or if you have not a chamber party but a pay-per-view party, I'll pull up. There you go.
Oh yeah.
Just saying. But Valentina, thank you so much for joining me here today. It's been a
No
pleasure.
problem. Keep it saucy.
Exactly.